All right, everybody, this is Bob again, comic book artist, writer, creator of Ghost Girl. And today I'm going to be doing another one of the Image X months, Image crossover month, whatever it was. Um, I really, I remember this as a kid when this happened. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I wanted this. I was like, man, we get to see these creators do the other people's characters and everything, and it was always cool if, Savage Dragon showed up in some other book or something like that, You'd like to see the other interpretations of these people's characters. But it did not end up that way. It actually ended up being one of the worst possible things because everybody already had their hands full with not only writing and drawing their own comic book, but getting everything printed and published and put out and everything. And people were already running late on many titles. They had a lot to do. So switching it up like that and making them write a new story or whatever, or draw characters that they weren't used to, it just didn't seem to work out well. So I already did the one with Todd McFarlane doing Cyberforce, which it was a bit disappointing. So you still had Mark Silvestri's brother, I believe, writing the story, and it was just Todd McFarlane and Todd McFarlane's studio drawing the images in that book. I think that's the only Image X month I've done so far, but this one is Rob Liefeld taking over for Shadowhawk, okay? I kind of liked Shadowhawk. I wasn't against Shadowhawk at all. I liked the character design and everything, but I just felt that, the artwork, like Valentino trying to look like an Image type of artist wasn't working. Like, it would have been better if he just kind of stuck with, his way of doing things. But I liked the character of Shadowhawk. I remember reading that and being into it. And then we have Rob Liefeld drawing, okay? And I have to be honest, like when I saw this, I don't think this is a bad picture. I kind of liked this. And I remember hearing Liefeld say that he flew through this book. Like, he just pulled out this brush and all the inking in this book was done with a brush, and he just started laying down like big, swaths of ink everywhere and doing it in a Frank Miller way. And he liked it, and he was able to fly like right through the book to do that. Having said that, I mean, we do know how Liefeld tends to draw, and it was actually Kiko who did all of the heavy lifting in this book and filled all the gaps and the negative space and everything for Rob Liefeld, okay? So I was a little weirded out here because, on this credits page here, we have, that it was, it's by Rob Liefeld as story and artist, but the layouts were done by Carl Alstatter, which is weird because I've always heard that Liefeld thinks that he's the best layout artist there is. So he's always talked about how his layouts are impeccable and perfect and everything. I'm not sure why you would hire somebody else to do it, but whatever. I'm not seeing much of a difference here with the way, this guy did his layouts in a way that Rob Liefeld would normally do his layouts, and you'll see what I mean. Of course, the story is also the same story we've seen 10,000 times from Rob Liefeld. So here we have a ship here going to this castle in the near the Austrian-Swiss border, okay? And we have Shadowhawk, obviously, and we have Bloodstrike, and we have a character named Mist. I don't know where Mist came from. Let's look at this here. Mars Gunther and Mist are enned by Carl Astor and Robert Napton. Okay, so I'm not sure what book Mist came from. I apparently have never read it, so I had no idea. And I'm only assuming that Mist was in this book because Carl Alstatter did the layouts. I have some weird thing going on with my computer. Sorry about that. I just kept like making these weird noises behind me. I wasn't sure if you guys were hearing it or not. So we have them, of course, on this ship going to this castle here. And everybody just lets you know that they're ready. Okay, that's it. We don't have any other information. But of course, we then go to what Rob Liefeld would do would be the double page spread turned on its side as they jump out of now a helicopter and not this spaceship. So right out of the gate, there's some massive confusion. I've seen other people review this book, and I don't think anybody else ever brought that up. That here we have this ship. That's where I don't see a helicopter anywhere. They're on this ship, right? And then we flip this, and they are jumping out of a helicopter. That is just very weird to me. That's massive. I don't know. Also, Shadowhawk kind of looks like he's a Venom symbiote or something like that. But the thing that kills me the most, and I remember this as a kid also looking at this, this eye is just, this whole eye here is just kind of melting off of her face going down to the side. This is not lined up in a way that it should be lined up. I think he started in one direction, ended in another somehow. It just, I don't know, it just looks so bad. But it's not the only time Liefeld's ever done that. That's like a common thing with him. I think I'm going to put this in a computer at some point and try to correct it to see what it would look like if the eye was where it belonged. And I guess if I'm going to correct stuff, I should probably turn that into a spaceship too, right? I mean, come on. Let's look at one more thing here. Okay, so no editor. Doesn't look like I'm not seeing anything for editing. So right there kind of tells you. So wait, Rob Liefeld did the story again, and then other people did the script. Okay. Yeah, so there shouldn't be any issues there, I guess. So here's my trick here. So Rob Liefeld goes to Carl Alstatter and Robert Napton, and he's like, hey, here's the story I want to do for Shadowhawk, and I want them flying in on a spaceship, but that spaceship turns into a helicopter by page 2. And they're like, okay, no problem, we'll put that in a script. That's how we'll do that. So that nobody, I guess, realizes, or maybe they wrote the script and Rob Liefeld's like, fuck that, I don't need a script. I'll just do whatever the hell I want. And that way I can always be completely and utterly inconsistent. There's another weird thing going on here, right here. I'm going to bring this in close so we can see that right there on the helicopter, there's some weird kind of discoloration. Some weird thing that maybe was just an issue with coloring or something like that, or maybe the print, but that looks wild. That was another thing I hadn't seen before. I'm sure it was just an error that nobody picked up on, but it just looks weird. So now we're going to, so again, we have them jumping out of what used to be a spaceship and is now a helicopter and saying, let's do it. And that's all we're going to get, because now we're going to cut back to before they're jumping out of a spaceship / helicopter to now get the story, because I think, no, geez, I don't even think Pulp Fiction was out yet. So he's not doing a Quentin Tarantino, let's do the middle part first and then the end and then do the beginning or whatever, you know. But anyway, we have Shadowhawk here on top of a building, and he gets hit by a dart by somebody, which I'm assuming is Bloodstrike. I mean, it must be, right? And then he wakes up, and apparently he's a prisoner, he says, to these two people. So what we have here is this is Mars Gunther. Now, again, I never read this. I never read Bloodstrike in any way, shape, or form. Most of Liefeld's stuff turned me off. Like I was in on the hype in the beginning of Image. I was purchasing everything. You know, I got Youngblood, I got Brigade. You know, but seriously, I think it was like after Brigade and God, I can't remember the other one. I think I did it when it was Team Bloodstrike instead of just the character Bloodstrike. So I was just like, okay, this is not for me. We're not getting any kind of story characterization, and the artwork was just atrocious. I stopped. And then if Liefeld brought anything out, I just was turned off by it. I wouldn't buy it anymore. So I never read anything when Bloodstrike became a single character, and I'm assuming that that's where this person came from. But basically, they're telling him that they have an offer that he can't refuse. that if he, you know, stops this evil genius from polluting something with a super form of AIDS, then he should be able to find a cure for AIDS, because we do know that Shadowhawk has AIDS. So I don't know how I feel about this. AIDS was huge in the 80s and 90s. People were dying from it, okay? Tons of people are dying from this incurable disease at this time, okay? AIDS was just horrible. I don't think that's a thing you should put in your book. I get where Valentino was going. This character has it. It's bringing awareness to it. Okay. Rob Liefeld has used AIDS as a story component for why, like, Chapel is part of Youngblood, is because, you know, he was infected with AIDS, and if he doesn't do what the government tells him to do, they'll activate that virus and kill him. I just feel like on Liefeld's part, he could have used any other fake disease that kind of mimics AIDS without really just using AIDS, because it ends up being in bad taste. But of course, if Liefeld's going to do a Shadowhawk story, he's going to bring the AIDS into play, okay? So they're basically saying, hey, if you do this, you'll get the cure for AIDS. And Shadowhawk's like, well, I guess I don't have a choice. So now we're going to cut back to someplace, we don't know where. They do have it in the caption. I'll read the caption so that way you'll know. But it says, we're busting into the Orpheus Foundation, a medical institute that specializes in biological weaponry. They've synthesized a solution that can transport HIV through water or soil, a mutagenic AIDS fluid. Okay, so now this government in this comic is just going to poison everyone with some new form of AIDS or whatever. Now, here's the thing. I like this picture. There's a thing with artwork where if you try to be too good and it's flawed, it doesn't work. But if you're not trying to be super perfect with it and there are flaws with it, sometimes it tends to look better, right? And you can get away with certain errors and things like that because the rest of it kind of has like an error to it, right? So when he does it like this and he's not trying to be perfect with it and he's just kind of splattering ink or whatever, I think it tends to work a lot more because, like, we don't take these bug-eyed people here so seriously or anything because, you know, it's looser artwork or whatever. But again, we have no background, so we just have to go by the word bubbles. And this is a comic, so with a comic you're supposed to show and not tell, but Rob Liefeld has never done that. It's easier to type this than it is to draw any kind of medical facility in the background. But again, I will say this, why waste your time doing that when you're going to make $1 million off this book anyway, which probably happened, okay? So somebody got the drop on Shadowhawk or told him to freeze. Shadowhawk throws some shurikens, which knocks the gun out of this guy's hand. And they're like, okay, we still got to hurry to this other section. I did a page count earlier on this book, and it is 22 pages, okay? And I'm working currently on my own comic, Ghost Girl. And I've been working on a story, and there are parts that I omit and then bring back, and then I change the order of events. I'm trying to figure out, like, what works the best. And obviously, I'm overworking it, right? I should have done more, but it's also why my process is going so slowly is because I can't get past, like, my own bullshit on it, right? Liefeld never has that problem. Somehow he can fill a 22-page book with absolutely nothing, with like no story, no information, no nothing. Everything I've told you about the story here is it. We're done. There is nothing else, okay? Shadowhawk gets propositioned by Bloodstrike and this other guy to go destroy this horrible AIDS fluid that they're going to poison water and soil with. And Shadowhawk's like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And then they go in and do it. The end. Okay, I get it. It's a one-story book. It's a one-shot for Liefeld here to do this. So you can't work with a continuous story or anything like that. That's why this is a Shadowhawk number 0, because I think at the time there was not a continued version of Shadowhawk, or maybe there was, but they couldn't mess up the story, so they had to do this as maybe a prequel, because that's how that should go, right? Well, anyway, they're bursting through these ninja guards of this government installation. We get another turn on its side picture here. I like this. I think this is pretty decent. I also like this. If you throw enough ink on Liefeld's stuff, it covers up any of his mistakes, and he should have stuck with this style. I don't think it works well on this robot. You know, he's trying to find a negative space, but this was like his first time doing this, I think. But I honestly believe he should have stuck with this, because it could have worked out a little better for him. You know, Liefeld at this point was changing his style like every 2 months. So you didn't know what kind of Liefeld you were going to get every time you picked up a new book. You were getting something that looked completely different than the last. We go from one double page spread to the other double page spread, right? But, you know, they're ambushed by a giant robot, and now they're going to fight the giant robot. I am going to focus in here on this, because that doesn't work. She just looks like the bottom parts of her legs were cut off. There are ways to do that. They just don't disappear behind your thighs like that. It just looks so bad. It doesn't look as bad here because of the angle, I think, but this is just god-awful. It's when I noticed that, I'm like, okay, that did not work out. With this brush, he could have made some heavy shadowed legs or something like that coming off to the side, and I think it would have worked perfectly. So I have no idea what happens here, because we have Shadowhawk jumping. Everyone's jumping as this giant robot swings at them, and Shadowhawk tells everybody to take cover and says this should get his attention, but I don't know what this is. There's no way of knowing what this is. We have two hands here, which I guess are Shadowhawks, and we have a pink glowing thing. I don't know what it is. He doesn't have it here. He doesn't have it here. So the layouts by Carl Astetter did that. That was his fuck up and not Liefeld's. I don't know. I don't know how that goes. I guess it was a bomb, or maybe he hit a button on the robot and they have a self-destruct button that's just there to be hit or whatever. I don't know. But he destroys the robot pretty quickly, right? That wasn't even a battle. It was just enough for a two two-page spreads, okay? And then they're like, okay, well, that's gone, so now let's get the fuck out of here, because we still have stuff we have to do. And then we have Shadow Bard here, which is kind of cool, okay? And so I don't know where the hell they are. I guess they're up inside. It's not an air vent or anything, but they're up there, and they're like, there's the containment unit for this horrible form of AIDS that they can use to pollute rivers and farmland and whatever the hell it is. But he takes them out with the shurikens. Okay, so these shurikens go into these, I guess, ninjas' heads, killing them, obviously, right? But earlier, when we saw that he threw it at some guy who had a gun, it simply just knocked the gun out, and like none of the shurikens went into the guy's hand. I don't know. Sometimes I just feel it's a little weird. Like, you don't have a comics code authority thing on here. You're kind of open to doing what you want to do. You can effortlessly kill two people with shurikens to the head, but you couldn't have that go into a hand and knock a gun out, whatever. Okay, so Shadowhawk actually climbs a rope down. They jump out of helicopters. They don't use ropes. They jump out of spaceships that turn into helicopters. We've seen that so many times. That is a Rob Liefeld trope. That is his thing. I actually believe that nobody else can ever do that in a comic, because Rob Liefeld has copyrighted it. Like, it is his thing. My characters jump out of helicopters. That's what we do. Okay? They jump out of helicopters. We see right here. Did we see any ropes? Are any ropes here when they jumped out of a spaceship / helicopter? Right? No, but here he has to climb down like 30 feet or whatever, but, you know, jumping 1,000 feet or so out of a helicopter is fine. He finds the containment unit that has the virus that he is supposed to destroy. He has a vial of fluid that will destroy it, apparently. That was never explained before, previously in the book. But the thing that kills me here is, it's, you know, take the time to just make sure your vial is straight there. That's it. A little bit of care. But I know, again, he flew through this. If you do the math on this, if you look, there's barely artwork on here. This is all Kiko. Kiko added a machine here because it would just be Shadowhawk standing there with a test tube in blank open white space if it wasn't for somebody adding all of this other stuff in there. And then apparently he has to pour one vial into another, which is kind of what we're getting here. You kind of see that there's a second vial here and that his tiny little thumb is trying to hold on to this glass vial. He had to show more of Shadowhawk's eyes than showing the vials being poured into each other when he gets shot in the back by some people who burst in. And he screams, but luckily, I guess he didn't spill this HIV virus everywhere for everyone to get, you know, contaminated or infected with it. Bloodstrike comes out of nowhere and shoots this guy in the head. Again, we have a brutal murder that just took place, but we couldn't have shurikens go into a guy's hand. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to cut back to when that happened. It's right here, right? These shurikens just kind of knocked it out of his hand, and he's like, oh, you know, and just kind of, I don't know, did it break his hand or anything? It says thock, but that's the sound that a shuriken should make going into his hand. It should be clink if it just knocked the gun out. Also, that gun was fitting in that hand. That's just bad. Anyway, again, I've said this in other videos. Liefeld has never seen a shoe in his life. So apparently he's never seen a gun either. This was early 90s, so I don't know, you know, the internet was kind of slow at that time. So I guess you didn't have readily available information and you weren't able to look up certain things like you are today. But I feel like there were ways, you know, at this time we had magazines. He could have picked up like a Guns and Ammo magazine and seen what guns looked like at any time if he wanted to, you know, do something here. So he is clinking these two test tubes together and getting a shiz out of it. I think that's hilarious because these chemicals are the shiz, bitch. That's not how you pour anything into anything, and it glows, right? I think that like any virus kind of dies if it's not like an airborne thing, right? And HIV was not an airborne thing, so I don't think it takes all of this to kill it, but okay, whatever, right? I guess they have to make it more dramatic or whatever, right? And he even hits it with, now it's your turn to die. Okay. So apparently they killed it, and he tells them that they killed it, and they're like, all right, well then, let's get the fuck out of here, right? Which they do. And so they get picked up by the ship that, I guess the helicopter turns back into a ship. This does not look like getting picked up. This looks like what we should have saw in the beginning when they were jumping out of this spaceship, which looks different than the other spaceship, which looks different than the helicopter that we had, right? But again, this is Kiko trying to take just an outline and turn it into something. This was the most minimalist type of thing I've ever seen, and Kiko had to try to, you know, determine what the hell that was, so that he could, you know, add some effects to it and everything, right? I guess this government installation was, it was a castle, but now they're on a, I don't know. Anyway, they blow the whole thing up because, you know, they poured that stuff into the HIV, which caused it to be extremely explosive. I don't know if anybody ever knew this about HIV, but that's what it was. It killed by blowing people up. So now, you know, it blows up this castle while they fly away in a completely different ship than the one we saw on the last page. There's no way that ship is that ship. This ship is not any of these ships here. That ship is not that ship. This ship is not this ship. It's what it is. So then I guess this guy is back on, it's on that ship. And he's like, okay, so I did what you wanted. Now give me the cure. And he's like, sure, I've got your cure right here. Nah, it's like, bitch. He pulls out a gun and just shoots him, right? He's like, we had a deal, no, and he gets shot in the chest, right? But then he, like, passes out. I'm getting the impression that, I mean, in the beginning, they hit him with a dart to knock him out, right? He's wearing all this armor, but a dart pierced him and knocked him out. Now he's just getting shot with what Liefeld would call a normal gun, right, in the chest. And he passes out. Then he wakes up on a rooftop talking about how much his head hurts. And then this guy left a little holographic message for him saying, hey, I know I screwed you over, but if you'd ever like to work for me again, I'm willing to. I know how you guys are. You don't take anything personal. And me using you for this and you getting nothing out of it, I'm sure you'll want to do that again in the future. So don't be afraid to contact me. And then that is the end of Rob Liefeld's Shadowhawk story. Okay. It is not the worst thing I've ever seen Rob Liefeld write. There was a complete story here, no matter, if it was little or not. This one issue, we got something, it ended, there we go. I mean, it was as simple as it could get, but he couldn't accomplish this in Youngblood, which was supposed to be a 4-issue miniseries that then turned into a 5-issue miniseries, but only with the 5th issue being half of a different comic. Things are never planned out. They're never written in advance. He's just making it up as he goes, and that's how he does it. So having a complete story here and everything, it works. Here is, I think, the last time we've ever seen Liefeld draw buildings, right? He was like, fuck it, if I'm just doing this in a Frank Miller type style or whatever, I can do this. And he drew buildings. There we go. He put backgrounds in. I think for the first time in this book, because he had to draw a rooftop. This seems like a very small building, but whatever. I'll still give him credit for, doing something here. I've got to find this book, because this is a 1963 book. It's Shadowhawk 14, so I'm going to have to find that. Okay. And then that's it. So that's the end of our Image crossover month of Shadowhawk number 0. So guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, please hit like. It helps my channel grow. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe. I try to bring a video out every day. Okay, well, thanks for watching.